All right. So we're going to wrap up this series that we've been in the last few weeks called The Best Christmas Ever. And even though we're going to finish this up today, hopefully it gets us prepared to focus on 2022 as well. Don't worry, next week we are not doing a vision series message. Every pastor learned their lesson in 2020. Like 2020, like every pastor preached about perfect vision and great vision, and then God said, "Yeah, see what you do with this." And so yeah, don't worry, that's not happening. But just want to encourage you to take this with you into 2022. Like I said, make sure that you're walking into 2022 very slow with your hands up. So we certainly do not want to be surprised. But I believe that the Christmas season. Most people in general seem a little more loving, a little more caring, a little more compassionate. Seems to be that for most of the Christmas season, there's some patience on display. It's especially when you're around some people who don't have the same address as you. We know that there tends to be a little bit more patience on display, but as soon as those car doors close and you're leaving, all bets are off. I get that. I know that. I totally understand that. One thing that I can truly say that I've missed year after year after year is Christmas with Amy's family. My family growing up, hot mess describes it. Okay. For like the extended family, and some of you guys are like, yeah, we know what you mean. And so for me, there wasn't really a whole lot of fun, good Christmas activity to look forward to until Amy and I got together. And Christmas at Amy's grandpa's house was so good. We looked forward to it. Family came in from out of state, out of town. And so it was just so good to just see those people year after year. As is the case many times after Grandma and Grandpa passed away, that tradition just kind of went with it. And so families are trying some new things, and that's part of it. But there were a few things that I always looked forward to, and it was usually always the Saturday before Christmas. There were a few things that I always looked forward to, or that I knew was going to happen after my first couple Christmases. One of them was that Amy's grandma's cookies were going to be hard as a rock. That was just the way that she made them. Like, that was the way that she made them. And so, yes, you took coffee, you took hot chocolate, you took milk, whatever you could to soften those things up. I did not know this, but apparently, Grandma and Grandpa got their hands on the table from the Last Supper. Because those leaves started coming out and coming out and coming out and coming out. I'm like, I did not know. And like this table got real huge. There was a dip in the middle. So, Grandpa had wedged up some kind of 4x4 post to, put up under there and, get that in, because Grandma was making sure that everyone was in the kitchen. Maybe not around the table, but everyone was going to be there in the kitchen. I don't know what pastor or what person traumatized Grandma, but apparently when I come into the family and I'm a pastor, she's letting me know when it's time to pray that please give us a prayer, not a sermon. Now, I did not do that to her, okay? I don't know who did that to her. I never had the guts to ask her, but it wasn't me. So for some reason, I was reminded every single time, and many of you have been with me as it's time to pray. Like, I got to tell you what. I heard a prayer this past week that it may come up more often. That was when I went out to eat with the Cupics. Rub-a-dub-dub, thanks for the grub, let's eat. Now, I'm telling you, you talk about getting down to the business. Jesus hears our prayers. He sees our hearts. Like, that may be the prayer to end all these, debates on sermon versus prayer. And then the story started to be told. And it wasn't always necessarily the storyteller that I was watching. It was the face of other people. Some of us need to know that there are times that we shouldn't let our face talk. You know what I'm saying? Like, there are times that, you may be like, Holy Spirit, help me keep my mouth shut. And he does that. But maybe you should pray, let my face just be cool and not be saying what I'm thinking. And so those stories would come out, and I would watch other people as they begin to tell things, especially when it was a husband and wife, all to see the wife's face when that story's being told. So all of those things that come with that. So all of us have some crazy stories. And so I was like, what if we could capture some of these moments and some of the weirdness of families? And so I went and I found a few pictures for you. So check out this first picture. Could you imagine that being your Christmas card that you get from somebody? Dude is all about himself. He has no idea that he has a wife and daughter at home. What about this next one? I don't know what he did to have to be able to pose for that photo, but he lost a bet with someone somewhere. Next one. I don't even need to say anything. And I guarantee you there's an in-law in there somewhere that is like, how did I get roped into this? Okay, next one. I mean, I get that we love our pets and all, but come on. How many of you have done that or would do that? Be honest. Okay, there's a couple. They're like, yeah. And I tell you what, I have never been able to really, like, if I would describe what can real peace look like, this guy found out what peace on earth looks like. This next one. Oh, no, sorry. That one's weird too. But let's move on to the next one. Bro figured it out. Bro figured it out. He figured it out. Oh, my goodness. So all of us have these weird family stories or these things that happen or whatever. But listen, all of us, we should still have, regardless of how weird family or friends are, we should still have the love of Jesus for them. And that's important at Christmas time. That's important beyond Christmas as well. 1 John 4:7-10 says this. Dear friends, let us love one another. I love this part. For love comes from God. Everyone who loves have been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. This is love. Not that we loved God, but that he loved us and sent his Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Can I tell you that the basis of Christianity is love? That God is love, and therefore everything that happens out of a church should be done with love? Everything that happens out of God's followers should be done with love. And that doesn't mean that we're going to get it perfect and get it right all of the time, but when we don't, that we circle back and in love apologize. In love give forgiveness. Because we're not going to be perfect. It's not going to happen. But that the basis of Christianity is love. It is personal. It's God's love to us. It is so personal. Regardless of how we feel about ourselves or how we think others feel about us, Christmas should be a reminder that we are deeply loved by God. I know there are some people that these holidays are tough for them because they do have some wild, crazy family dynamics. We need to be there to remind them that God is a God of love. And that because God is a God of love, that we're going to extend that love to other people. What God does for us, everything that God has ever done for us, it was motivated by love. It was motivated by anything that God has ever done for you. It's been motivated by love. It's not that we deserved it. It's not that we earned it. It was not that we reached a certain goal and so God did something. It was all simply motivated by love, because His love of all creation, that's the core of the nature of God. The core of the nature of God is love. And so as we're talking about these other things that we've discussed with hope, peace, and joy, we got to finish looking at love, because this is where everything comes out of from God, who God is and what God is about. So much so that because God is love, that's why He wanted to come to us in the flesh. God could have, in His sovereignty and in His creative powers and everything else, simply remained in heaven for all time. But He said, no, because I love them. I'm going to those people in the flesh. I'm going to them because without God's love, we can't really define love. Anyone that tends to have a problem, a real deep-rooted problem somehow, some way with God or faith or Christianity or whatever it may be, chances are that person has a skewed view of love. Someone has messed them up along the way, and they've got a skewed view of love. And so maybe instead of trying to prove to someone who God is or trying to shove the Bible down their throat, maybe we should do what the Word says, because God is love. We should be love to them. And we should make them question, well, why are you doing this for me? Nobody's ever done this for me. Because with the love that God has in me, I give to you. I faced this very fact shortly after I got saved, with a father who was a drunk, who my parents divorced when I was 5, and he pretty much ghosted us most of our life. I think from the time I was 5 until the time I was 14 was the first time I saw him. And then again at the age of 16. But by the age of 16, I knew it all, right? And there was so much hatred that I had for the man inside of me, that particular moment when he came to visit us, he passed the house and my mom sent me to go flag him down, drive him back. I simply was able to flag him down, stop him, and said, hey, we're going to go by the house. I'm going to point. I got to go into town. I never spent any time with him because I just had this hatred inside of my heart for the man. But then I get saved May 14th, 2000. Pastors talking a lot about forgiveness and a lot about love and a lot about all of this stuff. I'm like, no, but God is beginning to show it within inside of me. And I pick up the phone one day and I call him and I say, hey, because of the love that God has for me, I want you to know that I love you and I forgive you. The way I started that is what this is. God is love. I don't have that conversation if I never come to know who Jesus is. We do not have that that conversation doesn't happen because I had this skewed image of what it was. And then most of you know, some don't, but the question from him was, forgive me for what? Let me just remind you that there is only one party responsible for forgiveness. And that's you to someone else. How they respond, how they take it, how they reject it, that's not on you. But I'm telling you that all of us are called to extend forgiveness and truly love people regardless of what they've done to us or to our family, to our children, to our parents. And without forgiveness, we aren't really able to express this love that we're talking about for other people. Remember that whenever we see God working in our lives, it's not because He has to, it's because He wants to. It's because He loves us. God doesn't have to do anything. God doesn't have to do any... Listen, this is one thing that if you've ever had a conversation with Sherry Wright, she will continue to tell you, that if God never does another thing for us as long as we live, that was enough. Because He doesn't have to. He chooses to because He loves us and He wants those things for us. Most of us would probably agree that John 3:16 is one of the most popular verses that most people can tell you some sort of the Bible. Maybe just behind it or just above it, because a lot of people tend to think that they know the verse. Judge not, lest ye be judged. That's the only part they know. They don't read on to see what it says after that. So maybe that one's a close second. But John 3:16. Motivated by love, that God so loved the world that He gave His one and only Son. Whoever believes in Him shall not perish, but have eternal life. That is motivated by love and nothing else. Because I've got to tell you, I am not giving my kids up for anyone. That is only a love that God can have. There's only a love that God can have. Now, don't get me wrong. There are times I give my kids up to camp for a week of peace and quiet. Okay? But that's for me, okay? I'm not giving them up for anyone else. Only God did that. That's motivated by love. A lot of people think that God is just up there sitting on a throne waiting for people to mess up, and that, He just sent Jesus here so that we could really understand what eternal punishment was going to be and what it was all going to be about, and that there's this place called hell and all of these things, and that if we, cue the music. That the music's a little early. Whoever that is, that's just a little bit early. So, because mankind went so far off that, God's just there waiting to punish people. But as much as they don't read on from judge not lest you be judged, a lot of people don't read on from John 3:16. Because what comes next is a super powerful verse. It says, "For God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through Him." God didn't send Jesus to come to kind of be a spy. God didn't send Jesus so that He could say, "See everything that I did for you, now come to me or else." That's part of it. But it wasn't the only reason. The reason that He did it was not to condemn the world, but to save the world through Jesus. Listen, Jesus came to rescue and to restore. He came to bring back life. For some of you, you can name a time where your life was miserable and you just felt you were a walking dead person. And only because of Jesus, there's going to be a but God or but Jesus or something in your story, and life switched for you. That was because Jesus came to restore and to rescue and to set us free. God didn't do it to condemn the world, to judge the world, anything like that. Love is not about our own interests. Some of you are carrying guilt for some wrongs that have happened in your life, maybe self-inflicted. It's time to let those go. And to trade those wrongs, to trade that guilt, to trade that hurt, to trade that heartache for God's love, because God's love has more. God's love will always have more. God's love will always bring more. God's love will always contain more. God's love will always be more than anything happening in your life, because He sent His Son for us so that we have a way to spend eternity with Him, but He only did it out of love. Moving forward, here's what we have to keep in mind, not just around the Christmas season, but this. Our outward treatment of others should reflect our inner commitment to Christ. Here is the only conclusion I need you to know when you treat people like trash. Here's the only conclusion that they can come up with: you're trash. That's the only. You can't tell them about Jesus. You can't convince them you're a Christian. You can't tell them anything about God. You treat them like trash, you're trash. Because our outward treatment of others should reflect our inner commitment to Christ. I've heard people say, well, my faith makes people not want to be around me. No, you got it wrong. Our faith, our love, our hope, our joy, our peace should draw people closer to us. They don't want to be around you because your faith is judgmental, because your faith is critical, because your faith is filled with hypocrisy, because your faith is everything about you trying to do good works and kind of saying, well, everybody else is on their own. No, that's not the message of the gospel of Christ. It is, I know where I'm going and I want to take everybody with me. And I can't act like something and expect people to come with me on this journey. But if I have love, if I have the love of God, I know I'll make it. I know I'll make it. Many of you know that I was asked in the interview process as pastor for this church. I was asked to describe my ministry philosophy. I put it pretty plain and simple. Preach Jesus, love people, and be real. And I hope that those of you who have been here since that interview process have seen that that is exactly what I've tried to do. Have I got it right every single time? No. But when I do, I've went and apologized. I've went and asked for forgiveness. But I want to love people. And I want to choose grace. And I want to be careful in how I approach people for some things. I want to be careful in how quickly I want to begin to talk to someone about things messed up in their life. Because I want to make sure that my treatment of them reflects my commitment to Christ. That's what I want to make sure of. That my treatment of other people, that they're going to say, man, that guy, there's just something different about that guy. And I want them to know that it is because of Jesus.